There's a softness in the way you first glance at her, a hush in your chest that feels like reverence. It's almost tender. This delicate expectation that she will become the answer to questions you've never dared to speak aloud. You don't realize you're standing before a mirror draped in human skin. You imagine you're meeting her for the first time, but in truth, you are meeting the splintered fragments of yourself scattered, disguised, waiting to be recognized. You notice the way her smile awakens something restless in you, a longing that seems impossibly old. It's as if she carries an ancient key to a locked chamber behind your ribs, a place you've avoided because the air there is too thin to breathe. Every glance, every laugh, every moment of connection is a shimmering surface reflecting your disowned desires. You want to believe she is the source of your joy, but your heart knows better. She is simply the bright canvas onto which your hidden stories unfold in vivid color. You begin to see how she glows brighter when you feel small, how her presence feels necessary only when you're unwilling to claim your own reflection. You've called this love. You've called this destiny. But Carl Jung would call it projection, the primitive impulse to plaster your unlived life across someone else's body, and call it fate. This is the secret no one taught you. Every woman who entrances you is holding up a silent mirror. She shows you the parts of yourself you abandoned, the qualities you buried so deep you forgot they were yours to begin with. She does not complete you, she reveals you. And when you finally allow your gaze to soften, when you dare to see past her face into your own reflection, something almost terrifying happens. You catch a glimpse of your full self, unfiltered. And for a split second, the illusion of her perfection shatters into something more honest, something more alive. You've always been drawn to her fire, the way she seems to embody a fierce, untouchable freedom you secretly crave. You tell yourself you admire her strength, her conviction, her intoxicating unpredictability, but when you pause long enough to look past your own narrative, you discover the truth creeping up like a chill. Her power is your own, split off and disowned, returned to you in a form you feel safe worshipping. You start to feel the outlines of the Animus, Jung's term for the hidden masculine inside every woman, and by extension, the hidden vitality inside you. It's not her wildness you can't live without. It's the unlived boldness in yourself you never learned to trust. She becomes the sacred smuggler of everything you left behind. Your unsaid words, your unclaimed anger, your dormant purpose. She is a living emblem of your exiled hunger. You notice how you romanticize her defiance when you can't find your own. How you crown her with the myth of savior when you feel powerless to rescue yourself. This fantasy feels holy. It feels irrefutable. But in the quiet hours, when her eyes are closed and the mask slips off, you recognize that your longing is really a coded demand for her to act out the parts of your soul. You're too frightened to embody. It is a peculiar kind of theft, this worship. You take your rawest potential, your boldest instincts, and hand them to her, asking her to carry the weight of your becoming. And when she inevitably falters, when she proves she is only human, you feel the same betrayal. You've been rehearsing your entire life, the disappointment that no one else can complete the work you refuse to do yourself. The Animus unmasked is not an accusation, it is an invitation. An invitation to reclaim the heat you projected onto her silhouette, to remember that what you crave is already pulsing in your veins. She was never the answer. She was the echo of your own forgotten courage. You find yourself performing before you even realize it. There's a practiced tilt to your smile, a studied softness in your voice, an artful choreography of agreeable gestures. You call it attraction, you call it connection. But underneath, it is something more desperate, a carefully engineered persona designed to be irresistible. It's almost beautiful, the way you shapeshift to fit the imagined ideal. Like an actor slipping into costume, you wear the mask of the charming, attentive partner, hoping she will mirror back the validation you can't summon on your own. And for a while, it works. She looks at you with that flicker of recognition, as though you are everything she has waited for. The persona purrs in satisfaction. But there is a catch. Every time you put on the mask, a small part of you withers. The part that longs to be seen without the lacquer of performance. You feel it a quiet ache beneath your ribcage, a suspicion that this connection is only as deep as your willingness to keep the mask perfectly intact. If you were to let it slip, to reveal the messy totality of who you are, you fear she would. In a way, this is the pretty cage you build from your own hands. The persona becomes a gilded prison, a place where you are adored but never truly known, and even as you resent the bars, you grip them tighter. Because as long as you stay hidden behind the performance, you never risk the ultimate rejection, the possibility that your unpolished self is unlovable. Jung understood this dilemma with a clarity that cuts through the fog. The persona is necessary. It helps you navigate the world, smooths the edges of raw instinct. But when you mistake the mask for your real face, you become a hollow reflection of someone else's desires. You lose the spark that makes you vivid, unpredictable, real. You start to see it now. The more you perfect the act, the more brittle the connection becomes, underneath all your practice charm. There's an unspoken longing to be chosen without the mask, to be loved in the raw light of your own humanity. The question is whether you have the courage to take it off. It's easy to worship her light, the tender gestures, the softness that feels like shelter. You wrap yourself in her kindness as though it were proof that you are worthy of love. But every light casts a shadow, and eventually, you begin to notice the darkness pulling behind her grace, the subtle manipulations, the simmering resentment, the quiet scorn that leaks through her sweetness when you fail to play your part. At first, you flinch from this darkness. You pretend it isn't there. You tell yourself she is merely tired, that you are imagining it. But in your gut, something sharp takes root, a recognition you can't quite name. You sense that the very qualities you condemn in her are the same ones you have buried in yourself. Her cold withdrawal echoes your own fear of intimacy. Her passive aggression mirrors your hidden contempt. This is the shadow Jung described, the unclaimed fragments of your psyche, projected onto the nearest available screen. And no screen is more captivating than the person you desire most. You find yourself locked in a paradox, resenting her flaws, yet magnetized by them. Part of you wants to fix her, to redeem her. Another part wants to punish her for embodying what you refuse to admit lives inside you. You notice how obsession creeps in, wearing the costume of righteous indignation. You replay her words in your head, dissecting every glance for hidden malice. You become a connoisseur of her darkness, addicted to the drama it stirs in you. Because as long as you are focused on her shadow, you never have to confront your own. But here's the brutal gift. Every time you recoil from her darkness, you are offered a mirror. Each flaw you fixate on is a breadcrumb trail to your own unlived truth. Maybe her cruelty is a reminder of your capacity for anger. Maybe her selfishness is a signpost to your own unmet needs. The obsession is not proof that she is your enemy. It is evidence that she is your teacher, pointing you back to the parts of yourself you would rather keep buried. You tell yourself her affection is a gift, a balm for the places in you that still feel raw and unfinished. When she offers you her sweetness, her praise, her softness, her admiration, it floods you with the kind of relief that borders on intoxication. You drink it in, savoring the momentary certainty that you are finally enough. But soon, the sweetness becomes something else, a currency, a hidden lever she can pull to shape your behavior. You begin to notice how your moods rise and fall with the temperature of her approval. A single word of praise makes you feel like a king. A withheld compliment leaves you restless, prowling for reassurance. You start performing not because it feels good, But because you can't bear the ache of her indifference, you want to believe. This is love. You want to call it devotion. But somewhere in your chest, you sense the truth string. Her validation is a drug you can't stop using, and, like any addiction, it comes with a cost: your autonomy. You begin to sacrifice the small rebellions that once made you whole. You swallow your disagreements. You shrink your edges. You trade your authenticity for another hit of approval. It's almost poetic, the way you participate in your own captivity. She does not have to chain you to the wall. All she has to do is smile, and when that smile fades, your self-worth goes with it. You become a hostage to her opinion. A shapeshifter in pursuit of her warmth. Jung called this a projection of the idealized anima, the fantasy of the perfect feminine who can heal your wounds and complete your story. But no woman can carry that burden. No woman can save you from the work of claiming your own worth. You begin to realize the sweetness that feels like love is also the sweetness that controls you. And if you ever want to taste real connection, you will have to risk the withdrawal. You will have to discover whether you can stand in your own skin unadored and validated and afraid. It all begins so innocently. You meet her, and something inside you stirs recognition, a longing, a rush of possibility. You call it chemistry. You call it destiny. But in truth, it is the ancient machinery of your unconscious grinding into motion, pulling her image into the orbit of your unmet needs. You don't see her as she is. You see her through the prism of everything you lack. Her eyes become a sanctuary from your self-doubt. Her attention becomes a salve for your loneliness. Every word she speaks is filtered through the dense fabric of your own insecurities, stitched together into a story that feels safer than reality. It would almost be romantic if it weren't so suffocating. You build a mythology around her, one that flatters your ego and conceals your fear. You imagine she is the answer to your unfinished sentences, the missing piece to your incomplete identity. And for a time, this illusion feels better than any truth you've ever tasted. But illusions have a habit of decaying in the light. You begin to notice the cracks, the way she contradicts the script you wrote for her, the way her human complexity refuses to stay inside the lines you drew. Each time she disappoints you, you tighten your grip, hoping you can wrestle her back into the fantasy. This is the part no one tells you. Projection is not just a defense mechanism. It is a love story you write alone. A tale in which she becomes the heroine, the villain, the redeemer, while you remain the hidden author, terrified to drop the pen. Jung would say you are dancing with your own shadow, waltzing in circles round your unhealed places. You want her to be everything you fear you are not: whole, fearless, luminous. And as long as you keep her frozen in this role, you never have to face the question that haunts you: what if you were always capable of becoming those things yourself? The fantasy is comforting, but the truth is liberating. You can end the love story you wrote in her name. You can choose to see her not as your salvation, but as a fellow pilgrim, stumbling through her own labyrinth. You never spoke the terms out loud. You never wrote them down. But from the very first moment your eyes met hers, the contract began to draft itself in the silent spaces between your words. You agreed to give her your loyalty, your softness, your unspoken hunger for belonging. She agreed, perhaps unknowingly, to play the part you needed her to fill. It is astonishing how quickly these unconscious contracts can define a relationship. You promised to be the dependable one, the forgiving one, the endlessly patient witness to her storms. She promises to be the muse, the nurturer, the vessel for your projections. Neither of you remembers signing the paper, but still, you live by its terms as if it were law. You begin to see the ways you edit yourself to uphold the agreement. You swallow your irritation to avoid disrupting the peace. You pretend her criticisms don't sting. You offer your energy as tribute, hoping she will never notice how much of yourself you've bartered away. The irony is cruel. Everything you do to secure her affection only guarantees your eventual resentment. You feel it gathering at the edges of your chest, this quiet fury. The realization that every time you comply, you lose a little more of your truth. The moments you pretend to be okay become small betrayals you commit against your own integrity. Jung believed these invisible contracts are forged in the shadows of your childhood. Shaped by the patterns you learned before you had words, you learned to trade authenticity for love, to surrender your boundaries in exchange for a fleeting sense of security. And now, standing here in the echo of those old bargains, you wonder whether you have ever been truly known by anyone at all. But here is the mercy hiding inside the discomfort. The contract only binds you as long as you agree to its terms. You can choose to tear it up. You can choose to speak the words you've been biting back. You can decide that no relationship is worth the price of your wholeness. When you do, something radical happens. You stop demanding that she complete you. You stop offering your soul as collateral. You begin the slow, necessary work of meeting her and yourself without pretense. You've clung to the fantasy for as long as you can remember. The myth that somewhere out there, in the vast tangle of humanity, exists the woman whose love will finally stitch up the ragged seams in your chest. You imagine her as the final puzzle piece. The one who will slip perfectly into your emptiness and make you whole. This belief is seductive. It feels almost noble to wait for her, to keep your heart in a kind of suspended animation until she arrives to unlock your purpose. But the longer you linger in this hope, the more you begin to feel the cost, the aching paralysis of postponing your own growth, the quiet despair of living as a half-finished story, always looking to someone else for the final chapter. When you meet her, it feels momentous, like destiny is finally tipping in your favor. You weave together every coincidence, every shared glance, into a narrative of cosmic significance. You convince yourself she is the balm for your loneliness, the antidote to your failures. And in doing so, you place her in an impossible position, the role of savior, healer, redeemer. You notice how this expectation begins to poison the connection. Each time she disappoints you by being human, by being herself, you feel betrayed. You scold her in your mind for failing to live up to the legend you wrote in her name. You feel robbed of your happy ending, never questioning whether you were the one who made her responsible for your fulfillment. Jung would call this the projection of your inner gold, the luminous aspects of your psyche you refuse to own. When you lay this burden at her feet, you create a prison for both of you. She is trapped in the fantasy of your completion. You are trapped in the illusion of your deficiency. But the myth dissolves the moment you gather the courage to ask the question you've avoided. What if there is no one coming to save you? What if you were never broken in the first place? You stand on the threshold of a terrifying freedom. To let go of the myth is to accept that your wholeness has always been your responsibility, that no lover, no matter how luminous, can grant you the permission to be complete. You don't realize how much of your life has been devoted to the careful arrangement of illusions until you begin to withdraw them. At first, it feels like dying. Like every cherished story you ever told yourself about love and worth is crumbling under its own weight. You feel the emptiness rush in to fill the space where your projections once glowed so reassuringly. You see her now not as your fantasy, not as your savior, but as a human being with her own labyrinth of fears and longings. And in this clarity, a strange grief blooms. You are mourning the loss of the illusion as though it were a real person, because in many ways, it was. You notice the trembling in your chest when you stop expecting her to complete you. You feel the rawness of your own unmet needs, the hunger you've spent years outsourcing to her. You want to run back to the dream, to resurrect the myth that she holds the missing pieces of you. But something deeper keeps you anchored here. In this unvarnished reality, Jung wrote that withdrawing your projections is like reclaiming a fleet of ships you once sent out to colonize another person's shores. You call them home, and in their return, you inherit both their treasures and their terrors. The beauty is, once they're yours again, you finally possess the raw material of your own transformation. It is not a comfortable process. You will feel the loneliness you've been avoiding. You will taste the bitterness of your own unfulfilled potential. But you will also sense a flicker of something unbreakable at your center of clarity that has nothing to do with her approval, her affection, or her presence. Each time you catch yourself slipping into the old habit adoring her, blaming her, needing her to reflect your worth, you gently call yourself back. You remind yourself that the only eyes you must satisfy are your own, that no woman, no matter how dazzling, can shoulder the weight of your unlived life. In the quiet that follows, you feel the first tremor of true freedom. You see her face without the film of projection, and for the first time, you are free to love her not as a fantasy, but as a flawed, radiant human being. You stand here now, on the other side of your illusions, stripped of the comforting lies you once called love. There is no mask left to wear, no myth left to cradle, only the unadorned truth. You are alone inside your own skin, and you always have been. It should feel tragic. Instead, it feels like waking up. You notice how the edges of everything are sharper without your projection smudging the outlines. Her beauty is still there, but it no longer intoxicates you. Her flaws remain, but they no longer indict you. She is simply herself, complex, contradictory, impossibly human. And you, for perhaps the first time, are simply you. This is the searing clarity of individuation, the realization that no one else can author your worth. That every time you handed her the script of your identity, you are delaying the day you would have to write it yourself. It is a sobering inheritance, this responsibility for your own wholeness. But it is also a liberation. You feel the quiet thrill of unhooking your hunger from her gaze. You no longer need her validation to feel real. You no longer require her attention to feel significant. You have become the custodian of your own story. And the gravity of that autonomy feels both terrifying and exquisite. Jung believed individuation was the process of becoming who you were always meant to be, a slow and glamorous reconciliation with your own contradictions. It demands you hold the tension between your longing for a union and your need for a sovereignty. It insists you abandon the fantasy of rescue and learn instead to rescue yourself. And so you do. You gather up every lost fragment, the rejected fears, the hidden gifts, the unbearable longings, and you fold them back into your chest. You look at her without expectation. You feel the contours of your own solidity. This is not the end of love. It is the end of dependency masquerading as devotion. It is the birth of something cleaner. The willingness to meet another person without demands, to share yourself without forfeiting yourself. And in this unsparing light, you sense the possibility of a different kind of bond, one forged not in the hunger for completion, but in the quiet, sovereign joy of two whole people choosing each other freely. You have walked through the wreckage of your illusions and emerged with something more valuable than any fantasy, the clarity that you are whole, even in your incompleteness. The hunger to be completed was never a flaw, it was an invitation to rediscover the pieces you had hidden from yourself. Every projection you withdrew became a bridge back to your own sovereignty. You see now that love does not have to be a transaction. It can be an encounter between two beings who have chosen to honor their own wholeness first. You can let her be human without making her responsible for your story. You can hold your longing without demanding it be soothed by her validation. This is the quiet revolution of individuation. It is not the end of connection, but the beginning of something true, a relationship founded on mutual respect rather than silent contracts. You have become your own foundation, and in this grounded freedom, you are finally ready to meet her and yourself with unguarded eyes. If this resonated with you, share this video. Leave a comment about your own experience of projection and individuation, and subscribe to explore future reflections on emotional boundaries, self-responsibility, and the luminous path to psychological wholeness.